It all started with a jacket, of all things. Not a lipstick-stained collar, not some cliché hotel receipt tucked into a purse, not even a whiff of unfamiliar cologne lingering in the air, just a men's jacket hanging on the back of our bedroom door. At first, it didn't hit me. I walked past it twice before something about it gnawed at the edge of my mind. It wasn't mine. That's what did it. It was too new, too stylish for someone like me who hadn't bought a new coat in 3 years. It had one of those sleek logos on the inside, something European-sounding, expensive. I stared at it for a good 2 minutes, trying to rationalize it. Maybe it belonged to her brother. Maybe her dad forgot it when he visited. But neither of them had been over for weeks. I stood there, unmoving, like if I looked at it long enough the truth would materialize out of the threads. I waited until she got home from work. The kids were at my sister's for the weekend, and I was off that day, so it was just us. Lena walked in like it was just another day, set her bag down by the door, kicked off her shoes, and started going on about some substitute teacher who'd nearly let the class set the art room on fire. I played along, nodded, smiled when she smiled, but all I could hear was the question buzzing in my head like a mosquito that wouldn't die. Whose jacket is that? We went through the whole dinner routine, and I said nothing. She laughed at one of her own stories, something about a student who tried to fake a broken arm with duct tape, and I laughed too, though I didn't feel it. I waited until we were in the bedroom, brushing our teeth side by side, and she caught me glancing at it again. That jacket. Whose is that? I finally asked, pointing with the toothbrush still in my hand. She paused, just for a second, but I caught it. That beat of hesitation. That flicker in her eyes before she masked it with casual disinterest. Oh, that's... I think it's from the lost and found at school. I brought a few things home to wash for donation. That's probably one of them. It sounded plausible. She was always doing stuff like that. Donating, collecting, helping. It's what I loved about her. Or used to love. But this time, something about the way she said it, too smooth, too prepared, didn't sit right. I didn't question her. Not then. I just nodded and said, huh, cool, and went back to brushing. The next morning, I checked the tag. There was a name written in faded ink on the inside pocket. Not a kid's name. Not a school name. A man's name. I won't write it here. Not yet. But it wasn't a child's jacket, and it sure as hell wasn't from a school's lost and found. Still, I said nothing. Not to her. Not to anyone. But that was the moment I knew something wasn't right. Not just with the jacket. With her. With us. And from that moment on, I started watching. Really watching. Because once you notice the first lie, all the others start blinking at you like neon signs in a pitch-black alley. The next week, I couldn't focus on anything. I went through my work like a robot, replying to emails, ticking off tasks, staring at lines of code I'd written 100 times before. But my mind was somewhere else entirely, circling back again and again to that damn jacket. I didn't tell Lena I found the name inside. I wanted to see if she'd bring it up herself. Maybe offer a different story, maybe say she made a mistake. But she didn't. Every time we were in the bedroom, she'd move around it like it wasn't there. She didn't touch it, didn't put it away, didn't even acknowledge it again. And neither did I. We danced around that thing like it was radioactive. It was Friday morning when things started to shift. I woke up early and decided to head to the coffee shop we used to go to before the kids were born. We used to sit by the window, sip coffee, people watch, talk about everything and nothing. It had been years since we'd gone together, but I still went there sometimes when I needed to think. I wasn't expecting to see her there, and I wasn't expecting to see her with someone else. I just picked up my order and turned around when I saw her sitting in the back, laughing. Not school teacher laughing. Not wife and mother of two laughing. This was different. She had her elbows on the table, leaning in, smiling like she did when we were still dating. The guy sitting across from her was maybe early 40s, tall, beard trimmed to perfection, wearing the exact same brand of jacket I found in our bedroom. I didn't move. I just stood there like an idiot with my coffee cup in one hand and my phone in the other. She didn't see me. At least I don't think she did. They weren't touching, but they were close. Too close. I didn't go over. I walked out without taking a sip, sat in my car with the engine running and stared at the steering wheel. I wasn't even angry. Not yet. I just kept thinking, why the lie? Why pretend that jacket was from the school? Why not just say she met someone for coffee? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but something in my gut had already made the leap. Later that night, I tried to act normal. She came home like always, kissed me on the cheek, asked if I'd remembered to take the trash out. We had dinner. I asked how her day was. It was all right. Long. The kids were wild. That's all. What do you mean? Just wondering if you did anything else today. She looked up at me, and there was a flicker again, just like the night I asked about the jacket. She didn't blink. She didn't flinch. She just looked me right in the eye and said, "Nope. Just work." I nodded and stabbed another piece of chicken with my fork. I didn't push. Not then. The next morning, I got up earlier than usual and waited until she left for the grocery store. Then I did something I never thought I'd do in my marriage. I went through her stuff. Not her phone. I knew she kept that clean. She was careful, too careful for texts or photos. But the old laptop she rarely used, the one she forgot to log out of, that was a different story. Emails, calendar invites, search history, everything she didn't bother hiding because she assumed I'd never check. I found his name. Same name that was on the inside tag of the jacket. His email popped up in her contacts. I found a coffee shop calendar invite from the day before, one she'd marked as a meeting with a school committee member. When I clicked it open, the notes just said, "Catch up and talk." No address, no other names, but I knew. I knew it was him. And then I found the receipt. It was in her trash folder, 2 coffees, a croissant, and a to-go muffin. Timestamp matched the moment I saw them at the shop. She kept the damn receipt like it was nothing. Like I'd never look. That night I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I needed more. I needed something that would force her to tell me the truth. Something she couldn't talk her way out of. So I did the one thing I knew she'd never expect. I showed up at her school the next day without telling her. I brought lunch, a gesture I hadn't done in years. She was surprised, smiled, kissed me on the cheek in front of the secretary, acted like everything was perfectly normal. "You didn't have to do this," she said, sitting across from me in her empty classroom. "Just thought it'd be nice. Like old times." She smiled, opened the container I packed, and took a bite of her sandwich. For a moment, we looked like a happy couple. But then I reached into my bag and placed the jacket on the table between us. She froze. She didn't reach for it. She didn't speak. "I found the name," I said, voice low. "I saw you with him. Yesterday. At Brew and Bean." Her hands stayed in her lap. Her eyes didn't meet mine. "I didn't plan for this," she finally said. Her voice was soft, nearly a whisper. "How long?" I asked. She looked down at the floor. "A few months. Just coffee." "No." And just like that, the truth landed in the space between us, louder than any shout, heavier than any punch. I didn't ask anything else. I just stood up, took the empty lunch container, and walked out without saying another word. Because now I knew. Now the jacket had a name. Now the lie had a face. And now, the rest of the story was mine to finish. I didn't go home that night. I drove around for hours, stopping at a gas station for coffee I didn't drink and sitting in a grocery store parking lot watching people load bags into their cars like nothing in the world was wrong. I couldn't bring myself to call anyone. What was I going to say? That my wife was seeing someone else and had been lying to my face for months? That I'd sat across from her at lunch while she admitted it like she was talking about overdue library books? No, I needed time. I needed a plan. I wasn't going to let this fall apart quietly. She wanted to sneak around and play house with someone else behind my back. She wasn't going to get to slide away from it with a shrug and a quiet apology. Not after everything we'd built. Not after all the years I spent trusting her while she snuck out to drink coffee with someone wearing jackets that ended up in our bedroom. The next morning, I went home just before sunrise. She was already in the kitchen, pouring cereal for the kids, acting like the previous day didn't exist. I didn't say anything to her. I didn't look at her. I just kissed the kids on their heads, asked if they had everything for school, and left with them. I dropped them off, waved goodbye, and parked down the street, waiting until she left the house. She was predictable. Same routine. Gym bag in the trunk, reusable coffee cup in her hand. Her car always turning left at the light toward his side of town. That evening, after the kids were asleep, I sat across from her at the dining table. No music, no TV, just her and me and the cheap wooden chairs we bought together on a weekend trip 10 years ago. "I want names," I said. She blinked. "I already told you." "No. Names. Dates. Places. I want everything." She shifted in her seat. "You're not owed it." "You're damn right I'm owed," I snapped. "You don't get to burn everything down and then decide what parts of the story I get to hear." She leaned back in the chair, crossed her arms, and for the first time, I saw her without any filters. No fake smiles, no soft voice. Just her, unbothered and detached. "His name's Andrew," she said flatly. "We met at a school board event. It started with drinks after a meeting. He's divorced. We talked. Things escalated. That's it. That's it. She shrugged. What more do you want? We slept together. It happened more than once. I'm not in love with him. It wasn't about you. I stood up so fast my chair skidded across the tile. It wasn't about me? You brought him into our life, Lena. Into our house. Into our bed. Don't you dare act like this was some personal journey of yours. I never brought him here. The jacket says otherwise. She looked away then, her silence louder than anything she could have said. I walked into the bedroom, opened the closet, pulled out the damn thing, and threw it on the floor at her feet. This was hanging in our bedroom for 3 days. Don't insult me. She didn't pick it up. She didn't look at it. I didn't plan for this. I didn't wake up one morning and decide to ruin everything. No, you just decided to do it one step at a time. She finally stood up, pushed past the jacket on the floor, and walked to the kitchen. I followed her. So what now? I asked. You keep seeing him? You keep coming home and acting like nothing happened. She opened the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, and took a slow drink before answering. I ended it with him. Before you even found out. It's done. Because you wanted to? Or because you got caught? Because I knew it wasn't going anywhere. I felt guilty. You felt guilty, but not enough to stop? I tried. I laughed then, sharp and bitter. You didn't try. You made a choice. You kept making that choice. She didn't respond. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed again, like this whole thing was just a discussion she wanted to finish so she could move on to the next part of her evening. I want you to leave, I said. Her head snapped up. What? I want you out of the house. For a few days. A week. I don't care where you go. But I don't want you here. This is my house too. Not anymore it isn't. Not after this. She stared at me like I'd just spoken in another language. And maybe I had. Maybe she'd convinced herself I'd cry or beg or try to win her back. But I wasn't going to be that guy. I wasn't going to sit in the ruins of our marriage and let her pick through the pieces like she was shopping for souvenirs. You're being dramatic, she said. And you're being selfish. You really want to blow up the kids' lives over this? You already did. You just haven't told them yet. I don't want them to hate me. Then you shouldn't have given them a reason to. We didn't speak for the rest of the night. She slept in the guest room. I locked the door to our bedroom. The silence between us was thick and exhausting, but it wasn't worse than hearing her lie to my face. That part was over. Now it was just a matter of deciding what kind of ending this story was going to have. She was gone the next morning, like I asked. No note, no text, no goodbye, just an empty guest room and a quiet house. I walked around the place like it belonged to someone else. The bed was made, the dishes were clean, the hallway was still lined with framed school pictures of the kids from every grade level, but none of it felt familiar anymore. It felt like someone had pressed pause on the life I thought we were living, and all I could see now was the part one hadn't noticed, the part where she was slipping away while I kept making grocery lists and folding laundry. I gave myself exactly 1 hour to sit with it. Then I started working on what needed to be done. She was going to feel something for once. Not guilt, not regret, but the weight of what she broke. I didn't want anything loud or stupid. No smashing windows, no trashing her clothes. I wanted her to be exposed. Not just to me, but to the people who thought she was something she wasn't. The people who smiled at her in the break room and thought she was sweet and innocent and couldn't hurt a fly. The same people she probably smiled back at while planning another lunch with him. So I started gathering things. Emails, calendars, receipts, the timeline she tried to bury. I printed everything out and built it like a case, every date matched with her lies to me. I labeled each one with how she explained her absence that day. PTA meeting, staff training, extra help for students, all bullshit. I put it all in a folder, clean and neat. Next came the photographs. I didn't have many, but I didn't need a lot. Just 2. One from the coffee shop, taken from my car window when I circled back the second day she met him. The other was from his public business page, where he smiled in a staff group photo next to a list of services and office hours. I didn't need anything more explicit. She had already confessed. The photos were just to give the paper trail a face. I put those in the folder too. I sent it all to 2 places. One was her school principal, under a sealed envelope labeled confidential. The other was to his office, attention to their HR department. No message, no letter, no explanation. Just the truth, laid out plainly. I didn't know if it would cost them anything professionally, and frankly I didn't care. They had used their workplaces to hide behind while they built their little secret. It seemed fitting that the same environments should be the ones to expose it. By the time I was done, it was nearly midnight. I sat on the edge of the bed, the house dead silent, and waited for my pulse to slow. I didn't feel good, but I didn't feel bad either. I felt awake. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't confused. I was ready to end the game. The next evening, she came back. I was sitting in the living room. The kids were still out, staying with my sister for the weekend. Lena walked in with a duffel bag and that same tired expression she'd worn during our last few arguments. But this time, I didn't move. I didn't speak first. I let her stand there, awkward and unsure, the way I had been standing for weeks while she spun lies. She put the bag down and looked at me. I know you're angry. That's not the word I'd use. Then what? Done. She sat across from me, hands in her lap, and waited. Maybe she expected a speech, some begging, some grand emotional outburst. But I had none of that left in me. I sent everything to your boss, I said. And to his. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. You don't get to come back here and pick up like this is fixable. It's not. Why would you do that? You lied to my face for months. So you want to ruin my life? No. I want to stop being the only one who paid the price for your choices. She leaned forward, voice rising. You had no right. I had every right. You gambled our marriage on a secret. You don't get to be angry that I called your bluff. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't flinch. I watched them form, watched her blink them away, watched her realize that none of it would change my mind. I didn't mean to fall for him, she said. But you did. It's over now. Doesn't matter. So that's it. You're just done. I was done the moment I saw you with him. You should have talked to me. I did. You lied. Over and over. What was I supposed to do? Keep waiting for you to tell the truth when it was convenient for you. She looked around like she didn't recognize the house anymore. What do you want me to do? Pack the rest of your things. You're not living here anymore. And the kids. We'll talk about that later. She nodded slowly, stood up, and walked toward the bedroom. I stayed where I was, listening to drawers open and close, hearing the shuffle of fabric and zippers and footsteps. 20 minutes later, she was gone again. This time, I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel revenge. I just felt the silence of a house finally being honest. It took 3 days before she called again. I ignored the first 2. Not because I was angry, but because there was nothing left to say that I hadn't already made clear. On the 3rd day, she sent a message that simply said, "Can we talk somewhere private?" I stared at it for a while. She hadn't tried to fight what I did. Hadn't tried to twist it or beg or explain again. Maybe she knew there wasn't any room for that now. I told her to meet me at the park near the school, the one with the broken water fountain and the half-dead trees. We used to take the kids there when they were younger. I sat on the same bench I always used to, under the half-shaded part, and waited. She showed up 5 minutes late, carrying a coffee cup and wearing that same worn gray hoodie she always reached for when she was nervous. She didn't sit immediately, just stood there. I didn't tell anyone about what you did, she said quietly. I don't care if you do. I know. She sat beside me, leaving just enough space to show she understood the distance between us wasn't just physical anymore. I want to understand how we got here, she said, because I honestly don't know anymore. You cheated. That's how. I know what I did, but I'm trying to understand how I let myself go that far. That's not my job to explain to you. She looked away, stared out at the empty swings. I didn't hate our life. I wasn't looking to destroy it. You just didn't care enough to protect it. That's not fair. Neither was lying to me for months. I was lonely. So was I. But I didn't sleep with someone else. She opened her mouth to say something and then closed it again. I miss the way things used to be, she said finally. So do I. I miss you. I didn't respond. I don't know what happens next, she added. I do. We separate everything. We tell the kids. We figure out custody and schedules and all the other crap no one wants to think about. Then we move on. Just like that. Not just like that. I've thought about it every day since I found out. I keep wondering if we could have fixed it. If I'd told you earlier. If I'd stopped before it started. Do you think that would have made it better? I don't know. Maybe. It wouldn't have. I'd still be sitting here, knowing you looked at someone else and thought it was worth risking everything. She ran her hand over the top of her coffee cup, fingers twitching slightly. I haven't talked to him since that day. You should know that. That doesn't change anything. I'm not asking for another chance. I just wanted to talk to you once more before everything turns to paperwork and lawyers. I nodded. We sat there in silence for a few minutes. I could hear the sound of a lawnmower in the distance, the occasional shout of a teenager at the basketball court. Life going on around us like we weren't falling apart. I'm not going to make this difficult, she said. I'll take an apartment nearby. I won't fight you on the kids. Good. They'll be confused. They love us both. I know. What do you want them to hear from me? The truth. A version of it they can handle. She nodded again. I don't hate you, she said quietly. I don't hate you either. But you don't love me. Not anymore. There was no dramatic moment after that. No breakdown. No begging. She stood, looked down at me for a second, and then started walking back to her car. Do you think you'll ever trust someone again? She asked, stopping halfway across the path. I'll try. That's all I can do. She gave me a small nod, the kind you give someone you used to know well but now don't know how to speak to anymore. Then she left. I sat there for a long time after she drove away. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel strong. But I felt clear. The fog that had been hanging over me for weeks was finally gone. This was the last conversation. Not just the last one with her, but the last one I needed to have with the version of myself that thought everything was fine. That man was gone. I wasn't sure who I was now. But at least I knew I wasn't going to live the rest of my life pretending nothing happened. It's been a week since we sat on that bench. 7 full days without a message, without a surprise visit, without her name coming up on my phone. The kids came home 2 days after we talked, and I told them everything. I didn't spin it. I didn't protect her, but I didn't paint her as a monster either. I told them their mom made a choice that hurt our family and that we were going to handle it as best we could. They didn't say much at first. Our daughter cried. Our son sat there quietly like he was trying to solve a problem no one gave him the answer to. I gave them time. I didn't push. Later that night, my son came into my room and asked if I was going to be okay. I told him I would be. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. He nodded and said he hated what she did. I didn't try to fix that feeling for him. I let him say it, and we sat there in silence until he got up and went to bed. Dividing the house has been simple so far. She came back to pack more things while the kids were at school. I stayed at my friend Mark's place during that time. I didn't want to see her folding clothes, labeling boxes, pretending like she was moving into a new phase instead of walking away from a family she swore she'd protect. She left her key on the kitchen table. That was the last step. That, more than anything else, made it final. She didn't leave a note or anything sentimental. Just the key. No apology. No last goodbye. People always talk about closure like it's something that appears when everything's been said, like you wrap things up in a bow and walk off clean. But I don't feel clean. I feel like I've just started to see things clearly. I wasn't a perfect husband. I know that. I worked too much sometimes. I didn't always pick up on when she needed space or when she needed to be held. But I never gave up on us. I never stopped trying. And I never lied to her face while I was seeing someone else. In the evenings, I started walking again. Just up and down the street, sometimes past the school, sometimes to the convenience store just to buy something small I didn't really need. The quiet helps. The normalness of other people's routines helps. Watching a neighbor water his plants, hearing someone complain about the price of milk, seeing a kid ride his bike without training wheels, all of it reminds me that life keeps moving whether you're ready or not. I don't want to be stuck. I don't want to be the guy who can't stop replaying what happened. She made a choice. I made mine. And now, the rest is mine to figure out. Mark came by the other night with beers and a couple of pizzas. He didn't ask a bunch of questions. Just said, you need anything, you let me know. And then we ate and watched TV in silence. That kind of friendship, the quiet kind, is what's keeping me steady. I've had enough talking. Enough analyzing. Now I just want to live in something real, even if it's just eating pizza on a Tuesday night. I filed the divorce papers 2 days ago. No drama. No fight. We're splitting custody evenly. She's agreed to keep the kids during the week while I take weekends. We'll rotate holidays. The lawyer said I could push for more if I wanted to, especially considering the reason for the split, but I didn't care. I'm not trying to punish her. I'm just trying to be done. I want my name off the mailbox she's moving into. I want my name on a lease that belongs only to me. I want to wake up in a place where no one's lying, not even through silence. There's still pain, of course. It creeps in when I see photos from last summer or when I walk into a room and see something she bought for the house. But I'm not drowning in it anymore. I let it come and go. I don't try to fight it. I don't give it more power than it deserves. Pain is part of the cleanup, like dust you sweep away after everything's been knocked down. A few nights ago, my daughter asked if things would ever go back to normal. I told her no, but that didn't mean things couldn't be good again. She's smart. She understood what I meant. I think we all do. This isn't about getting back what we had. It's about starting something else, something we build with the truth right in the center of it. I don't know what dating looks like now. I don't know when I'll feel like opening that door. Maybe not for a long time. Maybe never. Right now, it's enough to sit in my living room in my silence with nothing to hide from and no one to lie to. That's what I've learned. Honesty isn't some grand statement. It's the small stuff. It's showing up. It's choosing not to betray the people who believe in you. It's remembering who you are even when things get hard. So this is where I end the chapter. No big finale. No dramatic twist. Just the truth, some space, and the decision to move forward. The story isn't about her anymore. It's about me now. And I'm okay with that.